Good afternoon. It's me, DayLife Mary. I'm just coming to you from the woods because I'm in the type of time period in my life where I don't really have private space, and I'm working on it, you know what I mean? But it's actually really nice here. I'm sitting on my little towel, and I have, pine cones. I'm really grounding, and I'm just here to tell you part 4 of my story. And before I get started getting into it, you know that I don't let you get on here and do anything without telling you to wash. And today's no different. So if you're watching this, make a wash. A financial wash can be made through cash.me/$washitall, paypal.me/washitall, and applepay and zelle, laundruss at automat.me. Let me pin these comments that DayLife Jesus is putting in the chat. And what is washing, you ask? Washing is an ego sacrifice. It is a way to wash your belief out of the pain matrix. Your belief is stored primarily in your money, your social belief, social capital, your reputation. And, you can go to my other lives if you want to know more about washing and what it's done in my own life and what it can do in yours. So, last time I left off, I was talking about the summer of gangstalking with me and my first real boyfriend, and I wanted to give a little preface to gangstalking that I didn't say last time and that I didn't know while it was happening to me. Only would I find a lot of things out later. But gangstalking is something that is done a lot of times by the governmental agencies, alphabet agencies, but it can be privately contracted. It can be done by, Scientologists who are intimidating a former member or something like that. But the overarching thing with it is that it is meant to be known that you are being under surveillance. It's overt, it's exaggerated, and it is meant to elicit a certain psychological response, and it is meant to get you to do things a lot of times. A lot of people go through gangstalking when they are trying to be entrapped into doing something crazy. A lot of people who are, Manchurian candidates or used by different agencies to perpetrate false flags or do all kinds of shit that are psychologically manipulated over time and groomed have experienced different types of gangstalking. So I'm not going to go further into that shit because I would learn later on in my story a lot more about this, and it would make things from my past make a lot more sense. But we're not going to fast forward to that. And I'm just going to continue into my junior and senior year of college at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So the summer was winding down. Christopher and I, through lots of research and talking to people on the streets who were pretty forward about things, pieced together that the FBI was gangstalking him and me through just being around him, but they said, him, and they were talking about that they were called service people, people who are on the ground doing that work and that job, and they weren't just there for him, but that's a very heavily surveilled city. So he was on their docket, on their list. And we had lots of ideas about it, but it had basically kind of died down. And I was starting to go back to school, and we just put it out of our heads, really. And I found us an apartment, the two of us and my 3 friends who were also going into their junior years at the School of Art Institute, and we all lived in this house together, a bunch of like 20-year-old girls, and then this 31-year-old just graduated ex-Mormon who was a good sport about it, and the girls were seemingly a good sport about it too. They thought he was weird, but anyways, I was selling a lot more of my comics and getting into that underground zine and comics world. And basically, like, tunneling also into a codependent relationship with Christopher. We were in this house together now, and this is a time where my friend Teresa, my freshman roommate, she was having a lot of difficulties staying at the school. She was always, like I said, keen on more what was going on and hard for her to fit into society. And she had experienced the bullshit with the FBI pretty heavily because she had her own experiences with agents, since she was someone who would just take risks and go out and talk to people and, the cruising for a bruising type thing. But she was always deciding whether or not to stay at school, and she was for good leaving town. And she tried to come to my apartment and tell me that Christopher was not right for me, and I think that she felt some kind of connection to me that was definitely taken away by my codependency with him. So she was jealous of him, but she was also like, for whatever reason, and she had all kinds of different struggles, but she was like, on one of her kind of manic benders where she would just do drugs all night and not sleep and go driving around, and she kind of was going to decide to just drive away across country again to leave Chicago, and she came in that state to tell me to, like, not be with Christopher and that she was leaving, etc., etc. And that would actually be the last time I ever saw her. And I will go into more of that later, but it's a key thing to point out and to note. So I'm like a goody two-shoes, and I was like that in high school, but in art school, being a goody two-shoes means, like, you're really good at going to gallery openings and, like, pretending that vapid cultural, like, shit is great and that the people you're hanging around are people that you like. And you're good at small talking and, like, staying in your studio all night and having, just being a part of, like, a horrible culture and, like, gaslighting yourself that it's what you want and it's all good. So I was getting really good at that, and I was spending all my time in my studio. I would get drunk there at night till I, like, passed out on the floor working, and then wake up in the morning and go to class. And I had I stayed in that apartment for 1 year, and the queer art collective that I helped form with my friends that I talked about on earlier part of my story, that house hosted like 500 people that came for this kind of like queer wrestling tournament fundraiser that was, I remember, this is like a really good key moment that encapsulates the parts of the culture of like these liberal art institutions and the young women inside of them versus like Christopher's perspective. But the girls and I would always talk about like hating men and like feminism, and it was just an excuse to like be really shitty and bratty and like hate and like get to be self-victimizing. And these are all like, I wasn't even the richest. I was like privileged, but I was not the level of rich that at all of my high school peers, but college, it was still there. Like every one of my roommates was rich. Like one of them, Camille, was from Paris and her family were foreign diplomats, and one of them, Anna, her family was from Norway, and she was like from New York City, and her family was rich, and she like had a house in Norway. And then Kate was from LA, and her dad was like a cameraman in Hollywood, and her childhood friend's mom was fucking Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, this, I was still in this super satanic, like, elite circles, glomming onto that energy, kind of fascinated by it. And they were super mesmerized more than me. I thought that this is another thing, like, I hated all of my friends. I judged them so hard inside for caring so much about status and prestige and wanting to, like, be in the hip crowd of SAIC who hung out with, like, the daughters and sons of celebrities and had, like, the super apartment gallery underground whatever shit going on. And Christopher thought it was all stupid, and he was like, y'all sound gross when you talk. It's like gross to listen to you guys. And I was just like, whatever, my boyfriend's stupid and he's like anti-feminist. But when we were hosting this party at the house, this like queer art fundraising, queer wrestling, kissing booth, tons of booze and like debauchery or whatever, there were these Macedonian pedicab drivers that hung out in the alley with me and Christopher mostly, but the other girls would come around. Christopher was the one able to make friends and hang out with anyone, so he facilitated those bonds, and we just kind of bummed cigarettes from them and hung out with them and drank with them in the alley. But they came in the alley when the party was happening because it was a huge party, like 500 people at our house, and they were not queer. They were fucking working class bros from Eastern Europe, and they asked someone why they went by like they instead of he or she, or asked what their gender was, and they were not being rude on purpose. They're just bros from Eastern Europe who are not rich high society bourgeoisie posing as low, like, working class queers. So my friends who are hosting the party with me tell Christopher to ask them to leave, and it's not even our property, it's the alley. And Christopher is like, no, I'm not telling them to leave. That is against the very principles your art collective poses to live by, or whatever. And I'm just like this bratty 20-year-old spoiled brat who's like, whatever, like, you're being anti-queer, because I was getting so brainwashed by SAIC. So that's like, there's a little insight into the dynamic between my boyfriend and my crowd of people my junior year of college. So then, like, we leave that apartment, and Christopher and I move into our own disgusting apartment together we get 2 cats. And we have these, like, alcoholic neighbors downstairs that we hang out with. And I'm really spiraling into the codependency vibe with Christopher. Like, I'm either at school working, doing the art thing, or trying to, like, become more of a, like, credible underground artist and self-publisher. Or I'm hanging out with him, watching television and eating food and drinking. I was really nursing the fucking binge drinking thing, like, going hard. And there's all kinds of, like, fucked up shit that I was doing or that was happening these last 2 years. But the overall vibe, I just want to, like, make it very clear about what the culture is of art school, and, like, what these, like, the creative counterculture of Chicago is driven by. Every time I went out, and every, like, underground venue, whether it was Situations, which my friend lived at, that had a lot of shows pass through there in the music scene, or the Dust Bowl, who she was dating, one of the guys that owned or lived at Dust Bowl owned, or whether it was like the visual art apartment galleries, or like shitty underground galleries like Julius Caesar, or fucking Boyfriends, or like any of these trendy conceptual art galleries that had like a fish tank of hair gel and a reading and like a drink cocktail that was part of the conceptual art, and like a perfume that sprayed that was like about the other thing, and like every single one of those was filled with horrible fucking vibes and people that were fucking disgustingly horrible and cared so much about the satanic bullshit. They were in mesmeration. Is that even a word? They were looking up the skirt of the pyramid, and they were occupying a very specific area of it that they were seeding shit because they were the elite, but they were tricky and tricksters, and people didn't know what they were peddling. And like I certainly felt it, but was a cuck and mesmerized in my own way of satanic success. So I was like licking the assholes of all these horrible people that I knew made me feel bad. Like, I would go to parties and I would be like, I'm gonna put on the Hannah Diamond song in 2013 and be cool because I know that like David Lynch's son is here. And like, I want to go to these parties, and I didn't even like talking to the people that were there, and I thought that they were horrible people. But I'm from this small town in Maine, and it happened to be where the Bushes have their estate, but you know, I'm mesmerized. And this is all happening while Christopher is out of that fucking scene and doesn't really care, and he's doing his outsider art shit, and he's graduated now, and he's trying to do shows and whatever. And he's also spiraling into men's rights activism. He was like starting a blog, and like, Camille Paglia has lots to say, and like all of my friends were like, your boyfriend? No. But he was doing things that like were early, talking about feminism being gross and cultural Marxist shit being a brainwashing scam for our generation or whatever. But I was still deeply enthralled and doing shit like BLM with my black friends in SAIC who were like boule hopefuls. So I was not listening to anything he had to say the least. And I was getting in fights with him about his beliefs and his blogs, and him looking into Gamergate and being on enter weird Facebook. And this is an important part of the story, because how did I end up in this cult? What brought me here? Everything's intertwined. And my boyfriend actually met Wiesel on the internet before I even knew anything about Temple or DayLife Army. And this time, my senior year by now at SAIC, when my boyfriend was getting really into weird Facebook, at its peak point, perhaps, say 2014, was the winter of 2014 was when he met Wiesel and was talking to him and was like, yeah, this thing, Weird Facebook, have you heard of it? And I was like, I'm on my track of becoming a famous artist. I can't have time for the internet, you know, I gotta be in the studio churning out product. So I was not at all involved, but I knew that that's what was happening with him, and that he was talking to this old dude who said he was the cult leader and made fun of this guy Boom Boom Farrell on the internet. And he was like, I feel bad for Boom, but they seem to perform it together online and he likes it or something and whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Then my ears perk up, the satanic hoe that I am, clout chasing hoe, and I'm like, he's like, MTV's been reaching out to me, because he had gotten a Vice article about, my boyfriend had gotten a Vice article about his sci-fi cult religion, the people of Aya, which, if you don't know earlier parts of my story, was an ironic art cult. It was like an art project. He did not do anything more than make comics and have like posts about it online, and like there were no members actually. But so he's telling me like Wiesel and Koa, who are together and doing temple stuff, they've been asked, as well as this woman Unicole and me, to do this MTV True Life, I'm Starting My Own Religion episode. And I was like, oh, really? Interesting. And this is something key to note. MTV is, along with Vice, are the certain level that reaches out once you have become on the radar of military intelligence, and they have a certain pipeline that they want to put you in, and they're ready to slot you into that, and then the next thing that comes after that, etc. And they found the 3 groups or people in the entire world who were openly claiming, and perhaps use the word reclaiming, the word cult, and doing something with the word cult and calling themselves a cult openly. They found the 3 groups that were doing that, and it was My Boyfriend, it was Wiesel and Koa, and it was Unicole. And Unicole was inspired to even call herself a cult because of Wiesel and Koa. Now, Christopher, he had never known them before, and they were doing things separately. And let me just say, Christopher was also gang stalked by the FBI while he was really pushing out the cult stuff. So that happens. We are getting on, our relationship is on the rocks. By the time I'm almost graduated, I'm like trying to do sex work, and he's like, no, I don't support that. I'm like, I just started a seeking arrangements profile. Like, isn't this what my pipeline's supposed to do? Who's like a dirty, grungy DIY artist, and then they become a sex worker, and then they, do this and that, and then OnlyFans hadn't started existing yet, so I was doing it pretty grassroots, but we were fighting about that, and, I was fighting about wanting to have an open relationship, and he did not want me to see other men. And right before the summer, it was getting so bad that the lease was about to be up in the apartment. I was about to go TA at Oxbow residency in a bookmaking class, and I was then going to go back to Maine home for a couple weeks. So I was like, we had a fight, and I didn't think I had no balls, but I was like, this is it, I'm going to break up with him. We were having a fight about being open. He was like, well, I don't want a relationship if we're going to be open. So the vulnerability sniper that I am, I was like, he said it. And I was like, yeah, we don't have to be in a relationship anymore. This is over. And he was like, wait, I take it back. Like, I didn't want that. And it's a perfect time for me to flee. And I do not confront or go into our issues. And I just leave the apartment and I'm gone. And I'm like, well, I have this starring role in your pageant, and the MTV crew is coming, and I'm still gonna be doing that, right? Because, that's happening. Cloutchasur. And he was like, yeah, you're in it still, whatever, and he probably just wanted to see me still. So, that was gonna happen when I came back into town. And, the footage started getting filmed. Punched in the Head Productions came to town, not satanic at all, and they started filming us, telling us what to say, what to do. The footage is all really awkward because we are in the process of taking our stuff from the apartment and breaking up and everything while this is happening. We host this pageant in this, those kinds of, storefronts that are, they host pop-ups, and there's, readings there, and, artists have, 10 shirts for $120 each that are, special editions, and there's, bespoke ceramics and stuff. It was that kind of place. They hosted the pageant, and we fit a ton of people inside there. A bunch of SAIC students, because what are you going to always find at any respectable underground establishment? Some fucking ops, conscious or unconsciously so. So that was happening. I got my little 15 minutes of fame on national television. My friends and I watched it at a bar. This is how much of a bitch I was. I brought the guy that I had just started seeing to the pageant opening that Christopher was at, and he just hung out in the back. Carl was his name. He had ties to the alt-lit scene, another completely MI fabricated scene that was just had to be big, had to be a thing. Much how the dirtbag left fucking gutter trash of podcasts right now are being openly exposed as an MI fucking thing. But yeah, that was where he was on the tail end of that dying scene or whatever, Carl, the new guy. And I was doing that at the same time. And then I guess that's kind of the summer happened. Christopher and I had our last meeting when I went to his house, or my old house, to get some stuff. And he told me, he's like, I've gotten really awoken since we last talked, like, the Jews. And, like, we talked about shit that I had been out of school and I had time to be on the internet. You know, the weird internet that I was, like, not having time for while I was still in school. And I was like, yes, conspiracy. I'm getting into that, too. And we had, like, our moment of talking about it. And since we had both been gang stalked and had a lot of stuff we had looked up about the military and the FBI, we had already had this, like, real-world experience that made us a lot more interested in finding other shit out, and started that spiral down the rabbit hole, as they say, for us both. So I remember that last time we talked too, I could have done the sucker punch. I could have done the, what do they call that? Like, you know, the fucking death punch, where I told him really what I thought and, like, stopped being, I could have done so much that I didn't do. I never spoke up, and I left, and he tried so hard to keep in contact with me. He was basically, like, sending me letters, showing up places. He did not take the breakup well at all. And, you know, I'll get into the rest of it for part 5. I think I'm gonna head out for now. But I'm gonna go into next time more of my post-grad spiral, and, you know, all of the litany of horrible jobs, all of my intensifying of my bad habits, and the things that I started to get into once I had a lot more free time. Or not free time, but I did not have school pipeline kind of taking over my brain and my belief, and I was able to find out a lot of shit, basically. We'll get into how did I find God through flat earth, that kind of shit. But I'm gonna go and make a wash. If you're watching this, a multiple of 12. My wash goal is like $700 today. I'm trying to get some shit done. I'm trying to this is the end of my week right now. My weekend starts tomorrow, so, you know, it's an important day to wash. And if you're watching this, make one. I know that Instagram is basically the number one place for parasitic relationships. Everyone is just a parasite in terms of, like, my audience here. It is the place that the least amount of equal exchange or relationship happens. And hey, if there's a few people who would like to change that, there already are one or two who do certain things in terms of washing here, but I am ready for more, and I want more, and I am unsatisfied. So that's it. Goodbye. See you later.